Captain Elias Monroe stood on the observation deck of the Starship Odyssey, watching the strange light of Erythra Prime shimmer through the panoramic viewport. The planet below was unlike anything humans had ever seen. Its surface glowed in soft hues of violet and green, with rivers that sparkled like liquid crystal and forests that seemed to pulse with life. For decades, humanity had wondered if there were intelligent beings beyond the stars, and now they had their answer. The aliens were not only real, they were magnificent. Elias turned to his crew. Lieutenant Mara Chen, the ship's science officer, was already scanning the data streaming from the planet's orbit. "Atmosphere is breathable," she said, her voice calm but excited. "Gravity slightly stronger than Earth. Life forms are abundant. Energy readings suggest an advanced civilization, but no signs of weapons or destructive technology. Everything here feels balanced." Elias nodded, absorbing the scene. There was all yes, but also a creeping sense of unease. Stories had spread across the galaxy about Erythrans. Rumors claimed that humans visiting their planet were considered prizes. Some said the Queen herself had a fascination with outsiders. The term unsettled him. Humans were explorers, diplomats, and scientists, not trophies. Still, the possibility lingered that he was about to walk into something far stranger than anyone had imagined. The Odyssey descended slowly through the planet's atmosphere, guided by magnetic fields that bent around the ship like a protective halo. Below, massive crystalline structures rose from the landscape, reflecting light in ways that made it look as if the planet itself were alive. The crew could feel a gentle vibration under their feet, a rhythm that seemed synchronized with the pulse of the planet. It was as if the world itself was breathing. As the landing platform came into view, Elias saw figures moving among the structures. They were taller than humans, with slender, graceful bodies. Their skin shimmered in colors that changed with every movement, soft blues, greens, and pinks blending together. They walked with careful deliberation, and their heads were adorned with delicate, crown-like growths that seemed organic yet elegant. These were the first Erythrans he had ever seen in person. The platform beneath the Odyssey was smooth and translucent, almost liquid in appearance. When the ship settled, the surface rippled faintly, responding to the weight of the vessel. A hum filled the air, musical and soothing, unlike any sound humans had created. The crew remained silent, aware that every movement would be observed. Then the Queen appeared. She emerged from a crystalline tower, her presence commanding yet gentle. Elias could not take his eyes off her. Her skin radiated a soft light that shifted with her mood, and her eyes, deep and intelligent, seemed to pierce into his very thoughts. She carried herself with the confidence of a ruler, but with a subtle grace that suggested she was as curious as she was regal. There was no threat in her movement, yet every member of the crew felt a thrill of tension. Elias stepped forward as the Queen approached. The Erythrans communicated in a language humans could not fully understand, but a translation device provided approximate meanings. The Queen spoke a single sentence that resonated in their minds more than in their ears. "We have watched you, humans. You have come far. Let us see if you are more than what you claim." Mara leaned close, whispering, "What does she mean by that?" "Tests, perhaps," Elias replied, though he wasn't sure himself. "But not the kind that use weapons. This feels different." The Queen stopped a few meters away from him. In her hands, she held an object that glinted faintly under the alien sun. It was long, sleek, and metallic, yet it seemed more ceremonial than dangerous. The translation device interpreted her words. "This is a symbol, not to harm, but to judge. Your strength lies not in force, but in understanding." Elias' heart raced. He had expected many things on this mission: diplomacy, discovery, negotiation, but not this. The humans were to be evaluated, and the first trial was not one of battle, but of intellect, reasoning, and empathy. Over the next hours, the Queen guided the humans through the palace. It was a labyrinth of crystal corridors and floating gardens. The air smelled faintly of sweet minerals, and the light shifted with an almost musical cadence. Waterfalls of glowing liquid drifted through the halls without touching the ground, suspended by an invisible energy. Plants moved subtly, opening their petals to follow their visitors as if studying them. Everywhere Elias looked, he felt that humanity's usual reliance on technology would not be enough. Here, intelligence, creativity, and adaptability mattered more than tools or firepower. He realized that this encounter would demand something from humans they had seldom needed: patience, insight, and the ability to understand beings whose thought processes were unlike anything on Earth. During a pause in the tour, the Queen stopped at a chamber filled with light. The walls reflected images of the humans' homeworld, Earth from space. Cities, forests, oceans, all mirrored on the crystalline walls. Elias recognized his own face among the observers, a faint echo of what the Queen had seen in him. She spoke again, her voice calm but filled with weight. "We have observed your kind. We have watched you struggle, adapt, and grow. Some of you will pass the test, some will not. The blade you saw is not for killing, it is a threshold. Approach it and you show courage. Hesitate and you reveal fear. Choose wisely." Elias looked at the ceremonial blade. It rested on a pedestal, glowing softly. It was beautiful and alien, crafted with precision beyond human comprehension. He reached out, hesitated, then touched it. The Queen's eyes shifted, colors flowing like liquid fire. She was watching not his hand, but his mind. Suddenly, a realization hit him. This was more than a test of courage, it was a test of humanity itself. Could humans meet beings who lived in ways so different, who thought in patterns so unlike their own, without resorting to violence or domination? Could they show the qualities that define their species at its best: curiosity, collaboration, and empathy? Over the next days, Elias and his crew engaged in exercises that tested them in ways they had never expected. The Queen presented puzzles that required teamwork, abstract reasoning, and ethical judgment. The humans discovered that the Earthrans valued communication more than action, thoughtfulness more than aggression. Every success brought a subtle shift in the Queen's glowing patterns, a silent acknowledgement of progress. Every mistake was met with patience rather than punishment, a reminder that understanding was cultivated, not forced. Elias found himself drawn to the Queen's presence. There was no threat, yet every interaction felt charged with meaning. She did not see him as an object, as rumors suggested. She saw him as a representative of his species, a being capable of learning, adapting, and surprising even the most advanced observers. One evening, as the planet's twin moons rose, casting a silver glow over the floating gardens, Elias sat beside the Queen at a reflective pool. The water mirrored the stars above, yet it was alive, rippling with subtle currents of thought he could almost sense. The Queen extended a limb toward the water, and the surface responded, forming shapes that resembled constellations from Earth. "This is your world," she said, "and yet it is a world I can know only through observation. You have much to teach us as we have much to offer you." Elias nodded. "We didn't come to be prizes, we came to learn, to share knowledge, to grow." The Queen's colors shifted again, softer now, warmer. It was a gesture of trust. The ceremonial blade lay between them, glowing faintly, a symbol of challenge met without harm. In that moment, Elias realized something profound. Humanity's greatest strength was not its weapons, nor its technology, but its ability to engage with the unknown with respect, curiosity, and intellect. The days passed in a rhythm that felt both timeless and fleeting. Each interaction deepened the understanding between humans and Earthrans. Elias and his crew faced dilemmas that required them to think beyond immediate gains, to consider long-term consequences, the balance of ecosystems, and the intricate social bonds of the alien species. They learned to listen without judgment, to act with empathy, and to collaborate in ways that transcended species boundaries. By the time the first part of the trial concluded, Elias had grown to respect the Queen not as a ruler of alien beings, but as a teacher and observer. The blade remained, a quiet reminder of the challenge, but it no longer represented danger. It symbolized the delicate balance between caution and trust, between curiosity and responsibility. Elias looked at the glowing figure of the Queen and smiled faintly. Rumors of humans as prizes had been just that, rumors born of misunderstanding. Here on Earthra Prime, humanity's true qualities were recognized and valued. And as the Odyssey prepared for its first official diplomatic meeting with the rest of the Earthran court, Elias felt a sense of pride. Not for conquest, not for victory, but for humanity itself, capable of rising to the unknown with wisdom, courage, and heart. The night fell over the alien world, and the stars above seemed to hum in response to the planet's pulse. Elias gazed at them, feeling both small and infinite at once. The trial had only begun, but he already knew. This encounter would change humanity's place in the galaxy. Not through domination, not through power, but through understanding, respect, and the unyielding curiosity that had driven humans to the stars in the first place. And somewhere in the quiet glow of Erythra Prime, the alien queen rested with the ceremonial blade between them, a silent witness to the first step in a journey that would unite two civilizations through the shared language of knowledge, empathy, and hope. Elias Monroe woke to the soft hum of Erythra Prime. The planet had a rhythm that humans could feel in their bones, like a heartbeat shared between the world and all who dwelled upon it. From his quarters on the Odyssey, he could see the floating gardens shimmering in the morning light, the crystalline towers reflecting color in patterns that shifted like living mosaics. The first day of formal interaction with the Erythran court had ended, but the weight of the queen's gaze lingered in his mind. Rumors and stories from home had framed her as a collector of outsiders, yet his experience suggested something very different. The ceremonial blade was not a weapon. It was a measure, a test, a mirror of humanity's potential. He stepped onto the observation deck where Lieutenant Mara Chen and the rest of the crew were gathered. "I've analyzed the energy flows of the palace structures," Mara said, excitement clear in her voice. "They're not just buildings. They respond to thought patterns, emotional states, and even intentions. If we move too quickly or react poorly, we could trigger some kind of rejection protocol. Not hostile, but exclusionary. Essentially, the palace judges us as much as the queen does." Elias nodded. "So the rumors weren't entirely wrong. We are being tested, but not like anyone imagined." The queen appeared again, walking with the grace of someone who owned not just a palace, but the very space around her. Her colors shifted as she moved, deep violet to soft blue, then a pale, reflective silver. Elias had learned that these shifts conveyed emotion and intent. Observing them had become almost a second language, one that the crew tried to interpret alongside the translation device. The queen's first words of the day were direct. "Humans rely on tools, on machines, on force. Yet your species has something rare. You have imagination, cooperation, and perseverance. Today, we will see if you can use these gifts to meet challenges you do not yet understand." She gestured toward a chamber that stretched beyond the visible horizon. Floating platforms hovered over a reflective liquid, each glowing faintly. From a distance, the platforms seemed impossible to cross, yet they appeared stable enough to bear weight. A gentle voice in the translation device explained, "This is not a physical test. You will navigate the platforms using strategy, observation, and communication. One misstep could end the exercise, but the outcome is knowledge, not injury." The humans stepped carefully onto the first platform. Immediately, Elias noticed the subtle shifts. The surface beneath him responded to weight distribution, subtly tilting or vibrating in reaction to hesitation or uncertainty. Each platform presented a puzzle. Some required synchrony between crew members, others demanded observation and deduction. At no point was there a threat of harm. The challenge was to understand the rules of a system that seemed alive. Mara whispered, "It's as if the palace itself is alive. I've never seen anything like this." Elias nodded. "And every mistake teaches us something. This is not about winning, it's about learning." The crew moved across the platforms, discussing strategies in hushed tones. Every success created a subtle resonance in the liquid below, glowing patterns spreading outward like ripples. Every hesitation caused slight tremors, reminding them that the exercise required confidence and clarity. The queen observed silently, her form shifting in response to their progress. Hours passed, yet the humans never grew frustrated. Their curiosity and persistence carried them forward. They discovered that working together, anticipating each other's moves, and observing subtle cues allowed them to navigate the platforms efficiently. What the queen had described as humanity's rare gifts, imagination, cooperation, and perseverance, were the exact tools needed to succeed. At the center of the chamber, a new platform appeared. It was larger than the others, smooth and reflective, but instead of glowing faintly, it radiated a spectrum of colors that shifted like a living rainbow. In the middle rested another object, smaller than the ceremonial blade but similar in shape and elegance. "This is the second trial," the queen said. Her voice, though calm, carried weight. "Here you will face a challenge of understanding, not motion. You must interpret the meaning of symbols, actions, and intention without instruction. Your goal is to communicate clearly with beings whose patterns are unfamiliar. Success is measured not in speed, but in insight." Elias studied the platform carefully. Symbols shimmered across the surface, changing with every movement. He realized that these symbols were responsive. They did not merely reflect humans' actions, they asked questions. Each movement, each spoken idea was part of a larger conversation with the system. Mara crouched, pointing at the symbols. Look, they're interactive. The shapes respond to intent. If we assume the wrong meaning, it changes form, almost as if it's asking us to reconsider. Elias nodded, then looked toward the queen. She was watching, her colors shifting to soft pink, a tone he had learned suggested mild curiosity and encouragement. Let's try observation first, he said. Let's see what patterns emerge without rushing. The crew spent hours interpreting the symbols. Some required patience, waiting for subtle alignments before acting. Others demanded collaboration, two or more humans moving in unison to trigger responses. As they progressed, the queen occasionally shifted her attention to individuals, offering guidance not in words, but in changes in her color pattern. Elias understood that she was teaching, not testing in the traditional sense. By the end of the day, the humans had reached the final symbol. Unlike the others, it did not glow immediately. It seemed dormant, almost contemplative. Elias hesitated, feeling the weight of the moment. The queen's gaze was steady, unjudging, yet expectant. He reached out, not touching the symbol, but aligning his hand above it, thinking carefully about intent and focus. Slowly, the symbol shifted, glowing softly and radiating patterns that echoed across the entire platform. The humans had succeeded, not by force, but by understanding, observation, and collaboration. The queen's colors shifted dramatically, flowing from violet to gold, a rare display of approval. Elias felt a warmth spread through him, a sense of accomplishment that went beyond personal achievement. Humanity had passed a trial that no traditional measure of strength could have conquered. As the humans returned to the palace corridors, they encountered more members of the Earthran court. These beings moved with a gentle rhythm, observing the humans without intrusion. The queen introduced Elias and his crew to the court's scholars and strategists. Unlike humans, the Earthrans seemed to think collectively, sharing knowledge almost telepathically. The humans were fascinated by this. Even more fascinating, the Earthrans showed genuine curiosity about human culture, technology, and ways of thinking. Elias realized that the so-called prize myth had been an exaggeration. The queen did not see humans as objects to possess. She saw them as beings capable of learning, teaching, and collaborating. Every interaction was an exchange, not a display of dominance. Over the next few days, the humans engaged in discussions and exercises designed to deepen understanding between the species. The queen presented ethical dilemmas, puzzles of logic, and abstract concepts that challenged the humans' perception of problem-solving. Each exercise required the crew to question assumptions, communicate clearly, and work as a team. One exercise involved a holographic representation of both human and Earthran societies. Humans had to identify patterns of cooperation and conflict, then propose strategies to enhance understanding without imposing control. The exercise was not about being right or wrong. It was about empathy and foresight. Elias noticed that his crew was growing more confident. They were learning to read the subtle cues of the Earthrans, changes in color patterns, shifts in posture, and even pauses in movement. These cues were the language of thought, a form of communication that transcended words. By paying attention, humans were beginning to bridge a gap that had existed for centuries between species. Late one evening, Elias returned to the reflective pool where he had first sat with the queen. The water shimmered under the twin moons, casting soft light across the palace walls. The queen was already there, observing the reflections of the stars and the humans below. "You have made progress," she said, her voice calm and serene. "Your species shows patience, creativity, and respect. These are qualities we value, yet few outsiders possess them." Elias nodded. "We are not perfect, we make mistakes, but we learn, we adapt, that is our strength." The queen's colors shifted to a soft green, a rare tone Elias had learned suggested understanding and approval. "Then perhaps the rumors were mistaken. You are not a prize to be claimed. You are beings to be known and understood." A smile crossed Elias' face. For the first time since arriving on Earthra Prime, he felt the full weight of hope. Humanity had been measured not by firepower or dominance, but by intellect, empathy, and the courage to engage with the unknown. Over the following days, the crew continued their exercises, each one more complex than the last. They faced challenges that tested communication, collaboration, and ethical reasoning. The Queen observed silently, interjecting only when necessary to clarify intent or encourage deeper thought. Through it all, Elias noticed subtle changes in the Queen's demeanor. Her colors flowed more fluidly, her movements more relaxed. It was as if she, too, was learning something from the humans, not about their technology or strategies, but about their spirit, their resilience, and their capacity for understanding. By the end of the second week, the humans had completed the initial trials set by the Queen. Each member of the crew had grown in confidence and skill. They had learned that success was not about conquering, but about observation, patience, and cooperation. And most importantly, they had learned that the myths about humans as prizes were false. Elias stood once more at the observation deck, looking out over the glowing world of Erythra Prime. The trials were far from over, but the first stage had been completed. Humanity had proven its worth not through weapons or force, but through thought, creativity, and heart. The ceremonial blade remained in the palace, a quiet reminder of the challenges yet to come. It no longer represented fear, but the balance between caution and trust. And as the twin moons rose above the alien horizon, Elias felt a renewed sense of purpose. Humanity had a role in this galaxy far larger than anyone had imagined, and the journey had only just begun. In the distance, the alien queen's form shimmered, watching, waiting, and reflecting. Humanity had passed the first trials, but the deeper tests of understanding, diplomacy, and connection were yet to unfold. And Elias, standing at the edge of discovery, knew that their species had something unique to offer, something that no alien culture could take away, something that defined them at their very best. Elias Monroe woke to the soft hum of Erythra Prime once more, though the morning felt heavier this time. The first trials had gone well, and the humans had shown ingenuity, cooperation, and patience. Yet a subtle tension lingered in the palace halls. Rumors of being a prize had not completely faded. Some of the crew, though inspired, could not shake the uneasy feeling that they were still under scrutiny, their motives being silently measured by the alien queen and her court. Elias stepped out onto the observation deck, taking a deep breath. The floating gardens below shimmered with soft violet and green lights, reflecting the planet's unique rhythm. Mara Chen joined him, her expression thoughtful. "Elias," she said, "I've been reviewing the last trial's data. The palace responded to more than our actions. It responded to how we perceived each other, our patience, even our assumptions about the Queen and her species. Every choice we made echoed back in patterns we could barely see." Elias nodded slowly. "So even now, we are learning more about ourselves than about them. That's unsettling and remarkable at the same time." The Queen appeared without fanfare, gliding along the light-reflective surfaces with her usual grace. Her colors were soft, a mixture of blues and pale golds, signaling curiosity tempered by careful observation. Elias realized that the Queen's form of communication was far subtler than humans had assumed. Words mattered, but so did timing, attention, and the ability to read between signals. "Humans," she said through the translation device, "you have learned much in days you would call short, yet there is one truth you have not faced. Misunderstanding can grow faster than understanding, even when intentions are pure. You must confront it, or the path forward will be clouded." Elias felt a chill, though he knew it was metaphorical. He understood what the Queen implied. The rumors, the myths, the stories of humans being prizes had power even if untrue. They could influence perception, erode trust, and make collaboration fragile. He had to address them. Later, in the palace's central chamber, the humans faced the next trial. Unlike the floating platforms or the holographic symbols, this exercise involved communication with the Erythran scholars. The scholars did not speak in human language, but conveyed ideas through light patterns, subtle changes in hue and rhythm, and small gestures. It was mesmerizing, almost musical, and difficult to interpret. Elias realized the challenge immediately. The scholars were testing not intellect alone, but empathy. Could humans perceive meaning without direct translation? Could they respond in ways that built trust rather than causing confusion? The crew struggled initially. One misinterpreted a pattern and triggered a cascade of color shifts that seemed to ripple through the chamber. A pause followed, and the humans felt a tension they could not quite name. Elias held up his hand to signal calm. "Observe," he whispered. "We need to see this not as a failure, but as information. What does it tell us about them?" Slowly, the crew began to read the language of light. Patterns suggested intent, emotion, and subtle reasoning. A smile in the shifting colors indicated openness. A sudden flicker indicated hesitation. By mirroring these patterns with their own subtle gestures and coordinated responses, humans began a dialogue, not with words but with shared attention, intuition, and respect. Hours passed in this silent conversation. Mara leaned toward Elias, whispering, "It's incredible. We're communicating across species without words. It's more complex than any diplomacy I've ever studied, and it feels fragile." Elias nodded. "That's exactly it. One wrong assumption, one ignored signal, and the meaning collapses. But if we succeed, we build a bridge humans and Urethrans could cross for centuries." As the humans progressed, the queen watched intently. Her colors flowed from pale gold to soft lavender, a signal that progress was steady, but that the challenge had deeper layers. The ceremonial blade remained in the background of the chamber, a quiet reminder of the balance between caution and trust. Then, the twist came. One of the scholars presented a scenario that human logic struggled to solve. It was an abstract simulation of an Urethran society, showing conflict between two groups over resources. The puzzle was not about winning, it was about resolution that respected both sides. The humans tried familiar approaches, trade negotiations, compromise, but each attempt failed to satisfy the simulation. The colors of the scholars' signals shifted sharply, conveying disapproval, though no hostility existed. Elias paused. "We're thinking too much like humans." "What if the solution is something neither species has done before?" Myra's eyes widened. "A hybrid approach, combining their logic with ours without imposing our assumptions." They experimented. Slowly, they aligned strategies that incorporated observation of patterns, attention to subtle cues, and ethical reasoning. Finally, the simulation responded positively. The colors shifted to calm green and soft blue, signals the humans recognized as success. Elias exhaled. "We did it not because we were right, but because we were attentive and willing to adapt." The queen moved closer. Her presence radiated soft violet, a signal of approval and deep contemplation. "You have learned to listen, to observe, to respect differences. This is more important than knowledge, technology, or strength. You see beyond your own expectations. You are promising." Despite the praise, a lingering tension remained. The ceremonial blade still rested between them, glowing faintly. Elias realized it was not a tool of fear, but a reminder that progress required constant attention and humility. Later, in the palace gardens, Elias reflected on the events. The Urethran court moved gracefully, observing them, interacting with subtle gestures and guiding learning. One of the junior crew members, Ensign Tarek, spoke quietly. "Captain, I can see why the myth started. Outsiders seeing this culture could misinterpret it completely." "Without understanding, fear spreads easily." Elias nodded. "Exactly, and it is up to us to show that understanding matters, not only to succeed here, but to represent humanity accurately to the galaxy." The queen approached, her colors shifting to pale green, signaling trust. "There is one final insight before the next stage. Misunderstanding is a shadow. Even when intentions are pure, it can grow faster than clarity. You must recognize it, address it, and act in ways that illuminate truth rather than deepen confusion." Elias considered this. "So the rumors about humans being prizes, they were not true, but they have meaning. They teach us how easily perceptions can be skewed even across species. Our challenge is not only to succeed, but to correct the story." The queen's form shimmered, flowing from gold to violet. "Correct, human, and in doing so you show what your species is capable of, not weapons, not force. Insight, empathy, and collaboration, these are your strengths. Use them wisely." The following days involved more exercises, each more intricate than the last. The humans learned to anticipate patterns of thought in a species that operated both collectively and individually. They discovered that trust was earned through consistent observation, care, and adaptation. Elias found himself increasingly intrigued by the queen herself. She was not just a ruler, but a teacher, a guide, and a mirror reflecting humanity's potential. The ceremonial blade remained between them, a symbol of challenge, but it also reminded him that trust was delicate and could be lost through negligence or arrogance. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the palace gardens, Elias returned to the reflective pool. The water mirrored the stars and the glowing gardens above. The queen was already there, her form radiant in the soft light. "You have advanced far," she said. "Yet there remains one barrier. Humans tend to assume their perspective is primary. You must learn to see without assuming, to act without imposing, to understand without judging. Only then can true collaboration exist." Elias nodded. "I understand. It is not enough to succeed in tasks. We must succeed in perception itself. We must see the truth of your culture without coloring it with our own biases." The queen's colors shifted to gold and pale blue. "Then you are ready for the next phase. It is not a trial of intellect, nor of patience, but of reflection. You must show that your species can observe, adapt, and act with integrity when confronted with complexity beyond comprehension." Elias realized the significance. Humanity had passed the first trials of intellect, empathy, and cooperation. Now, the challenge would be to demonstrate maturity, awareness, and the capacity for understanding on a level that bridged species entirely. For the first time, he felt the weight of responsibility. The myths, the rumors, the stories from Earth, they were all shadows of misunderstanding. It was up to him and his crew to illuminate truth, to show that humans were not prizes to be claimed, but beings capable of growth, collaboration, and insight. As the night deepened over Erythra Prime, Elias gazed at the stars reflected in the floating pool. The alien queen rested nearby, the ceremonial blade lying quietly between them, glowing faintly. It was not a symbol of danger, but a reminder of balance, between caution and trust, between curiosity and respect, and between misunderstanding and clarity. In the quiet of the palace, Elias felt hope. Humanity had proven itself capable of extraordinary things, not by force, but by intellect, empathy, and courage. The story of humans as prizes was a myth, yes, but the lessons it carried were real. And in the coming trials, those lessons would shape the path forward, not just for him and his crew, but for humanity's place in the galaxy. The twin moons shone brightly over the gardens, and the palace pulsed softly in rhythm with the planet. Elias understood something profound. In order to truly be known and respected, humans had to keep learning, adapting, and observing. The queen had shown them the way, but the path forward would require more than obedience or cleverness. It would demand the very best of what humanity could offer. And in that understanding lay the promise of unity, the potential for trust, and the beginning of a bond between species that could endure far beyond the myths and fears that had brought them to this moment. The twin moons of Erythra Prime had risen again, casting soft silver light across the floating gardens of the Queen's palace. Captain Elias Monroe stood at the edge of a reflective pool, watching the colors of the plants shift with the planet's pulse. He felt a calm he had never expected. The past trials had tested the human's intellect, patience, empathy, and perception. Now there was only one challenge left, one final step to prove that humanity could be understood, trusted, and respected by a civilization vastly different from its own. The Queen appeared quietly, her iridescent skin glowing softly in the moonlight. The ceremonial blade lay between them on a crystalline pedestal, its glow faint but steady. Elias knew it had never been a weapon. It was a symbol, a reminder that trust and understanding were earned through thought, observation, and patience. "You have come far, humans," she said through the translation device. "You have observed, learned, adapted. You have shown insight, compassion, and courage, yet understanding is deeper than action. It is reflection. You must now demonstrate that you can see yourselves as others see you and act with wisdom beyond your immediate needs." Elias nodded. He understood the weight of her words. The Queen was asking them not just to perform, but to internalize the lessons of the trials. Humanity's value was not measured in results alone, but in the ability to navigate complexity with integrity, empathy, and respect. The humans were led into the central chamber one last time. It was unlike the previous rooms. Here the walls were reflective, not of light or color, but of memory. Images of humans' actions, decisions, and interactions played silently across the surfaces. Their successes, failures, patience, and hesitation, all were visible not as judgment, but as data for reflection. Elias saw himself moving across the floating platforms, hesitating, thinking, and coordinating with his crew. He saw Mara aligning with the scholars, carefully reading subtle patterns of light and motion. He saw the moments of misunderstanding, the errors of assumption, and the careful recoveries that followed. The Queen's voice broke the silence. To understand others, you must first understand yourselves. This chamber shows not what you have done, but what you are capable of. Observe honestly and act wisely. For hours, the crew walked among the reflective walls, studying the images of their own actions. They discussed what had worked and what had failed. They analyzed the patterns of trust, cooperation, and perception. Each human began to see themselves through the eyes of the Queen and the Earthran court. The exercise was humbling. It was one thing to succeed in trials. It was another to see how every choice, hesitation, and assumption shaped the way they were perceived. Elias stopped before an image of himself reaching for the ceremonial blade during the first trial. At the time, it had felt like a small act, a gesture of courage. Yet in the reflection, he saw it as the Queen must have seen it, an indicator of potential, a test of intent, a spark of trust. He realized that humans were not passive participants. Every observation mattered, every decision shaped understanding. Mara approached him quietly. "It's strange," she said. "We're being judged, yet it doesn't feel like judgment. It feels like learning for all of us." Elias nodded. "Exactly, and it's clear now. Our strength isn't in dominating, winning, or controlling. It's in observing, reflecting, and acting with insight. That's what she values." The Queen moved closer, her glow shifting to a pale, serene green. "Humans," she said, "you have faced the unknown with respect. You have shown that your species can learn and adapt. You have not relied on force, but on thought, collaboration, and patience. This is your true strength. It is rare across the stars. Few species possess it in full measure." For a moment, Elias felt an overwhelming sense of pride, not personal, but for humanity. This recognition was not about conquest or superiority. It was about respect for what humans could offer: insight, empathy, creativity, and perseverance. The Queen gestured toward the ceremonial blade. "Approach it one final time, not as a test, but as a symbol. Stand with it and show understanding without fear, without assumption, without seeking reward. Let your actions speak for your species." Elias stepped forward, the weight of the moment settling on his shoulders. He did not see it as a personal challenge. He saw it as humanity's chance to demonstrate who they truly were. Carefully, he reached for the blade, holding it lightly above the pedestal. He did not grasp it with the need to conquer or claim. Instead, he held it with awareness, respect, and calm. The Queen's colors shifted dramatically, flowing from green to gold, then soft violet, a pattern Elias had come to recognize as rare, signaling deep acknowledgement and admiration. The other humans followed, standing alongside him. They mirrored his intention, thoughtful, careful, and reflective. "You have succeeded," the Queen said. "Not because you completed trials, not because you solved puzzles, but because you have shown comprehension of what matters. You have respected life, thought, and perception. You have acted with integrity. You have proven that humanity is capable of bridging worlds without fear, without dominance, without misunderstanding. This is your true value." The ceremonial blade's glow dimmed, and the pedestal retracted into the crystalline floor. The symbol of challenge was no longer necessary. Humanity had earned acknowledgement and trust. The tension that had lingered since their arrival dissolved, replaced by mutual respect and a sense of accomplishment that transcended species. Elias turned to his crew. "This is it," he said softly. "We've learned more than we ever expected, not just about them, but about ourselves. Humanity is capable of more than we often realize." The Queen extended her hand, not as a ruler to a subject, but as a gesture of solidarity. Elias stepped closer, and for the first time he saw her not as a mythical figure, not as a collector of outsiders, but as a partner in understanding. "You have shown what your species can offer," she said, "and in doing so you have earned more than trust. You have earned the possibility of lasting connection. You are not prizes, humans. You are equals in the pursuit of understanding." Elias felt warmth spread through him, a recognition that resonated deep within. The myths and rumors from Earth had held a kernel of truth. Humans were fascinating to other species, but the fascination was not about possession. It was about recognition of potential, the potential to learn, to grow, and to connect in ways that reached beyond words, species, and planets. Over the following days, the humans explored the palace with a new perspective. They walked among the floating gardens, conversed with scholars, and observed the patterns of life that pulsed throughout the city. The Queen shared insights into her civilization, and humans shared stories of Earth, their cultures, and the challenges they faced. Every exchange was mutual, thoughtful, and free of fear or hierarchy. Elias realized that the ceremonial blade, once a symbol of uncertainty and tension, had become a symbol of balance. It represented the delicate interplay between caution and trust, between curiosity and respect, between misunderstanding and clarity. And in the presence of the Queen, humanity had proven it could honor that balance. One evening, the Queen guided Elias to the highest tower of the palace. From there, they could see the entire planet spread below them, glowing in its bioluminescent hues. Elias felt a sense of awe and humility. He had traveled across the galaxy seeking knowledge, yet this view revealed something deeper: the beauty of life, the interconnectedness of beings, and the responsibility that came with understanding. "Look at your home from here," the Queen said, "and know that your species has earned the chance to step beyond myths, beyond fear, and into cooperation with others. You have chosen wisely. You have shown what it means to be human." Elias gazed at Earth through the palace's crystalline observation panels. He saw its oceans, mountains, forests, and cities, and he realized that humans had something unique to offer the galaxy: creativity, empathy, and courage guided by insight. Strength lay not in force, but in understanding, in patience, in collaboration. The crew gathered one last time in the central chamber. The Queen addressed them collectively. "Humans, you are not trophies nor curiosities. You are capable of wisdom, and you have shown it. Let this moment be remembered not as a test, but as a step toward lasting friendship and cooperation. May your species continue to learn, grow, and share knowledge freely across the stars." Elias felt a swelling sense of pride. He thought of the rumors that had haunted their journey, the myths that had suggested humans were prizes. Those stories were now transformed, not by argument, not by force, but by demonstration. Humanity had proven itself through intellect, reflection, empathy, and perseverance. They had earned respect, not through dominance, but through understanding. As the Odyssey prepared for departure, the Queen approached one final time. Her colors flowed softly, a sign of reassurance and trust. The ceremonial blade lay beside her, now inert, a quiet witness to the journey they had shared. "Go with the knowledge that your species has earned its place," she said. "And remember, understanding is a gift. Use it well." Elias and his crew boarded the ship, their hearts full of hope and purpose. The engines roared softly as the Odyssey lifted off, leaving Earth Prime behind. The floating gardens shimmered below, a world alive with knowledge, beauty, and the possibility of connection. As the ship sailed through space, Elias looked back one last time. The Queen's figure stood at the edge of the palace, watching them. The ceremonial blade rested quietly between them, a symbol not of fear, but of the balance that trust and understanding created. Humanity had faced the unknown, adapted, and emerged with recognition not as prizes, but as equals. And in that moment, Elias knew that humanity's place in the galaxy had changed forever. Not through conquest, not through power, not through force, but through intellect, empathy, curiosity, and courage. For the first time in human history, the stars seemed within reach, not as empty voids or threats, but as worlds to explore, understand, and connect with. And somewhere deep in space, on a glowing alien planet, an alien queen smiled softly, knowing that humans had proven what they were capable of, the very best of what their species could be. The Odyssey sailed onward, carrying with it the promise of exploration, the power of understanding, and the enduring strength of humanity. The myths were gone, replaced by truth. Humanity was no longer a prize. It was a partner, a thinker, a learner, and a species capable of bridging the stars. And above it all, the twin moons of Earthra Prime shone quietly, as if blessing the journey of a species that had chosen to meet the unknown not with fear, but with courage, curiosity, and respect.